I want to take you through the process of this, and by extension, obviously the listeners, because
yes,
this is
please.
a fascinating story. So we reported this about 11:30 on Monday morning that, and I can't even believe, I think this might be the first time I'm saying these words out loud, but Snoop Dogg is part of the consortium with one of the groups led by a Los Angeles-based entrepreneur named Neko Sparks. Snoop Dogg is a potential owner of the Ottawa Senators. He's all in on this. So I'm going to walk you through this because obviously, and I think somewhat rightfully so, Ryan Reynolds has dominated the news cycle on this particular story for the better part of 4 months, where it's felt inevitable. But I'm going to take you back, Julian, to January when the first time I wrote about this group led by Neko Sparks. One of the things they said was they have the goal of being the most diverse ownership group in hockey history. They wanted to have a number of people of color in positions of power. That they were going to put a consortium together of 12, 15 people, and the majority were going to be people of color, and they want to change the NHL, not only at the grassroots level, but at kind of the boardroom level too, okay? So the one thing they told me in January, Julian, was we believe that we have a celebrity that's on par with Ryan Reynolds. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, who is it, right? And so between January and April, so 4 months, I was pestering people close to this group, around this group, and I'm like, who's the celebrity? Is it The Rock? No. Is it, I heard at one point Floyd Mayweather? They're like, no. I heard The Weeknd? They're like, no. And I'm like, who the hell could it be? And I think here's what I really think happened, Julian. Mm-hmm. I think last week, the story came out that the Ryan Reynolds group, and full credit to Bruce Garriock of Post Media, he was the one who had it, and he was the one who had the story that suggested that Ryan Reynolds and the Remington Group were prepared to make a $1 billion. Do I need to do the Dr. Evil $1 billion, or is that Ed Belfour?
$1 billion.
Yeah. Ed Belfour should jump in with $1 billion. Maybe you're too young. Are you too young for the Ed Belfour $1 billion reference? I'm
not aware of it. I might not be too young, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Well, this is why, remember I always said, like, every episode of the pod, I feel like I could teach you something. So back in the day, I think when Ed Belfour was playing for the Dallas Stars, mm-hmm. he was arrested on, I think it was like public intoxication, like something fairly, like, not overly serious, but he was booked and charged. And apparently he tried to talk his way out of it by offering a $1 billion bribe to the arresting officers.
No way.
He was like, I'm Ed Belfour, and I think it was like $1 billion.
No way.
Yeah. Ed Belfour. But
anyway, hockey players don't make that much money.
No. Anyway, back to this story.
That's
where
crazy.
I think, honestly, I think what happened was the Reynolds group dominated the news cycle last week. And I think all of the other groups, and I still believe there's 4 or 5 other groups that are interested. I think all the other groups are like, are you kidding me? Like, honestly, are you kidding me? Like, this is a runaway now. Like, why on earth would anybody try to put a bid in if you're telling us Ryan Reynolds is going to go in for $1 billion? Like, honestly. So I think, like, they felt like there's a lot of other groups, and I don't know what the other groups are thinking. I've been in contact with some of them, but I think they felt like, are you kidding me? Like we're losing the PR battle here. So after months and months of me trying to chisel at this, I finally kind of got something loose on Friday night that led me to believe it was going to be Snoop. And I'm like, what? Like, you wouldn't have believed, like, my initial reaction, like my jaw hit the floor. And then I spent so I texted my editor, and I work with Neko Sparks, who works out of Vancouver. And I texted her Friday night.
Shout out Neko, man.
Neko's amazing. And I said, you're not going to believe, I sent her a note on Slack. I said, play a game with me. I said, I think I got the celebrity nailed down. I think. Go ahead and guess. And she took a couple guesses. I'm like, nope, think bigger. And I said Snoop, and it was like 5 seconds later, she comes back with like 5 exclamation and question marks. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I said, just give me some time to try and nail this down. And then this is the part that you will appreciate the most as a reporter, as a fellow journalist.
Yes.
I'm sitting in a movie theater. I take my daughters to see Air, the Jordan Nike movie.
Yeah,
So,
I gotta watch that movie.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, guys, like our daughters are a little bit older. They're 18, almost 19 and 15. And I was like, you know what? I love spending time with them, but movies are like one of my favorite things to do with them. I said, let's go to the movie. Let's go for, and this is not intended to be a Snoop related joke, but we did pick a 4:20 showing. It was a 4:20 showtime. I now think of that as yeah. So we're sitting in the movie, and you know the rule of you get the notification, shut off your phone, right?
Yeah,
let everyone enjoy
yeah.
it. But I know that I'm really close to potentially nailing this down. So I leave my phone on, and sure enough, like 9 minutes into the movie, 10 minutes into the movie, my phone flashes, and it's one of these kind of sources that's kind of close enough to the situation where I feel like if I can nail them down. And I had to run out of the theater and take the call in the hallway. And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, I think that this is it. So anyway,
that's
long
amazing.
story short,
that is so cool.
Yeah. It's wild though, right? Like it's a really wild story when you think about, like, we live in I don't know what's crazier to you, that we live in a universe where the Toronto Maple Leafs have a legitimate chance to win the cup, or we live in a world where there's $2 billion bids for the Ottawa Senators with their own A-list celebrity. I don't know what's weirder.
I feel as if like the second story should have more lasting impact for the legacy of the league as opposed to the former. No disrespect to Leafs fans, but like the idea that Ryan Reynolds was in on the Ottawa Senators for a bid, like there's a reason why it got propped up the way that it did, because for celebrities of his caliber to pay attention to the league and show that interest in the league, like that's a big deal. Like all of a sudden the Ottawa Senators could be this cool team. For Snoop Dogg, who has already shown interest in hockey. Do you remember that time he was on he's been on those LA Kings broadcasts before?
Yeah.
Trying to provide commentary the way that he has. This is a guy who likes hockey. This is a guy who likes sports. This is a guy for him being interested in the Ottawa Senators is still a shock. But like him being around the game of hockey isn't a complete shock, but that's also exactly what this league needs. And this whole aspect of the ownership discussion has not been discussed enough, in the fact that a team with persons of color leading it at the forefront would be a massive, massive deal. It's not something that happens every day in the big four of sports. So for it to be in hockey, which might be the whitest of all four of them, it would be insane. And of all people to lead that charge, Snoop Dogg, that is one of the coolest stories. Like, and I think if it's kind of funny, like, I don't know if it's cool to root for people to own certain teams or anything like that, but like, I get the hype with Ryan Reynolds, but Snoop Dogg owning the Ottawa Senators would be real cool. Can you imagine going to the Canadian Tire Center, that opening press conference gets flown in and he's just at the what's it called? The table or whatever that they have to do the press conferences, and he's just there. Can you just imagine like people asking him questions and he's handling it? Can you imagine like Bruce Garriock trying to ask him questions and seeing how that goes?
Yeah.
I feel like you would handle it a lot cooler than Bruce.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'm that kind. Well, although technically, I am younger than Snoop, right? So I should have that going for me. I got about 5 years on him. So
what's your favorite Snoop Dogg song?
See, I always like back in the day, I always think about, like, it was my last year of high school was Gin and Juice. Yeah. So that's the one for me. And I always love, like, it's the Penguins jersey. Like, he's wearing that old school, like
the old school Penguins jersey. Like, the biggest reason why that jersey is cool is because he wore it.
Yes. And so that's always the one for me that, like, I don't know, goes back to my childhood, and the Penguins jersey. Like, that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. But my answer would have been him on Still Dre with Dr. Dre, by the way.
Yeah. Like, but like, you would agree with me on this, that there's not very many people whose platform, reach, whatever you want to call it, would be equal to Ryan Reynolds, if not a little bit more, but certainly in that realm, in that stratosphere. Snoop is legit in there. And and it's why
That's a big deal.
It is. I'm telling you, man, I had this kind of not sit on this, but like the ability to try to nail that down without anybody else knowing about it is one of the, I didn't even sleep really well last, like, I'm usually a guy, like, I sleep really well. Like, I didn't sleep. I was tossing and turning thinking I'm going to wake up and someone else is going to have, snuck in there and had this. And I'm like, like, to be anyway. Yeah.
Man, I just have to say, that is so cool that you were able to have that story and to bring coverage to that, because there has been a lot with Ryan Reynolds and some of the other ownership groups, but for that to be a potential candidate for the Ottawa Senators, that cannot be overlooked in any of this. And the fact that it's Snoop Dogg, people are not going to see this, because I don't know if we're going to do a YouTube clip, but in the case that we don't, when I heard this was happening, I decided to wear my Snoop Dogg shirt just because of how like funny this all is. Yeah, feels like it's going to be a very busy May 1st for both of us.
Man, what a crazy time. What a crazy time. And I want to say, I want to go on the record here and say, like, I don't particularly, maybe care is not the right word, but like, it doesn't matter to me who owns the Ottawa Senators. I want to make this clear. Like, I if it's Ryan Reynolds, great. If it's the Snoop, Neko Sparks consortium, great. If it's Michael Andlauer, fantastic. Like, my number one desire in all of this is to see stable, competent, committed owners in Ottawa. And I don't care who that is. Now, I understand the allure of having Snoop or Ryan Reynolds. Like, I totally get that. Trust me. I get it. But the number one thing, we can't like take our eyes off the main goal, which was this franchise for years was completely mismanaged and neglected. And we just need an ownership group in here. I don't care who it is. Come in here and like understand this market and understand this fan base. That's it. Like, and if it happens to be Ryan Reynolds, that's awesome. And I'm not going to change the way I cover this team. If it's Ryan Reynolds, if it's Snoop, if it's Mike Andlauer, like whoever it is, I don't particularly care. I'm just going to try my best to hold you accountable. And I want you to do best, and I want you to do right by this community. I don't love that sometimes I see people say like, you should, I don't think as journalists and reporters, we should be putting our hat, I guess here's what I want to say. I don't want this to be construed as me somehow endorsing any group. I'm just passing along news that I think is significant, right?
100%.
Like, this is a significant piece of news. Like, this is,
well, yeah, of course. Like, yeah. I don't think you doing that. Here's the thing. Like, I'm excited that you got the story. And like the possibility, and I think we're allowed to let our minds wander and wonder about a world where Snoop Dogg is the owner of an NHL team. And I think it's totally cool to think about how cool that could be and the potentials that come with that. It's not necessarily an endorsement, but I think like to have such a high profile celebrity at a time when the league needs as much exposure as it can get, isn't this not something that would help the game? Is this not something that would be a positive? Like, this isn't, both of us say, whether it's Ryan Reynolds or whether it's Snoop Dogg, and look, with respect to the other ownership groups, whether it's Michael Andlauer or anybody else, but Ryan Reynolds and Snoop Dogg, I think there's like an element of visibility that comes into this that we cannot ignore. And while it's not an endorsement from either of us, if either of those guys get it, I think that's a positive. It could be perceived as a positive element to either of those two getting an NHL team. And I think that cannot be overlooked.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be really fun to watch this process unfold from an arm's length in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. But anyway, there's the background of how I kind of tried to chisel away for months to try and get that, to get that answer. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it shocked me. I don't know who I thought it was, but it never crossed my mind it was Snoop.